My name is Ruby Martha Rose Stonestand, and I was born on James Smith Reserve. And I've lived here for 75 years. Oh, I came from a family of 12 children, and I was born into a very poor family, you know, and most of my siblings and my older brother died, and most of us, except for two, they went to residential school, and 6 of them have died mostly from alcohol abuse. Yeah, and I have one brother. I had 6 brothers. No, 5 brothers, and there are 7 of us girls. I only have one brother that's alive today. And he went to residential school, but like he had a lot of issues at the school, but he never disclosed to anyone. He never got that money that the people were getting, because he wasn't able to talk about it. And same with my 2 other brothers. They never wanted to share what happened to them. So I have 4 sisters alive. So there's only 6 of us left. But we had a very hard life. We were very poor. I remember I was born in a log house in 1943. And at that time, my mother said it was about 50 below when I was born. So, and like I said, I was born at home, and she used to always tell me, my mom, that I didn't even have no clothes when I was born. I guess I had to wear my older brother's clothes. That's how poor we were. You know, there was no child tax, no welfare, nothing whatsoever. You know, people just had to, try and make their own living. There was no assistance, whatever. We lived on, off the land. My dad used to hunt, and my mom used to try and make a garden in the summer. I knew my dad taught us a lot of stuff, like how to hunt, and I know how to snare and all that, and fix meat and everything. I still rather eat wild meat than the meat that we buy at the store now. That's all I live for, is to eat wild meat. And I still plant a garden each year. I think I'm the only elder in this community that does that. And then when I get my garden, I share it with other elders and my family. So I'm still struggling with the past issues, and we just came back from a healing journey workshop yesterday. We were in Saskatoon for 2 days, and it was good. It was good to bring out some of my feelings out, which I never share with anybody. But in that room, we were able to share with each other, and it was really good. It was healing, because as I guess a lot of our people came through a lot of stuff that weren't good. Racism is still going on today. And my family, I remember, I don't know why I came from a Oponichow family, and my family was looked down in our community. I don't know why, but I remember on my dad's side, they were looked down, and they were very humble people. So I don't know why, but I know they were into alcohol. I don't know if you guys ever hear of moose milk. Yeah, that's what they used to make it, and that's what they used to drink, because liquor wasn't allowed on a reserve. And but somehow from their past generations, I don't know, that's where they learned how to make this alcohol. And but I remember we used to be sort of like food, and people were very generous. You know, they used to share with whatever they had. Not like today, it's so different, you know, and help. They used to help each other without getting paid. Now today, even me, when I ask somebody for help, for a ride or something, I have to pay. So it's really, really different. Them days there was no vehicles, just horses. And I remember we used to have well, I don't know what to call them. I remember when I was small, we didn't even have a lamp or anything. You know, we used to use this rag, and we used to put it in some kind of grease, and we'd put it in a little container of grease, and that's where we got our light. Like, I don't know if I should say it, they used to be called bitch light. You know, it was, when I think about it now, the name of that, you know, I laugh, but we were that poor. And it was it was only us. There was a lot of people like that. I remember one time, this young, and then after that, my mom got some lamps. You know, lamps with, they used to use coal oil, they used to call it. Even that, they used to share. A lot of people would be short of that oil, and they used to share with whatever they had. They shared everything. But we used to, like I said, we lived off the land. In the summer, we'd go live in a pines where the berries were. When I was small, I remember living there, I think, most of the summer. And I guess you know where that is. That's north over here, about 10, 15 miles north by the river. And that's where they used to go hunt in the summer and fish. The Saskatchewan River is right there, and we used to pick berries, and my dad used to snare and hunt, and that's how we survived in the summer. Because, like I said, there was no assistance, whatever. And later on, people used to go off the reserve to work for white farmers. A lot of the land that's cleared outside the reserve was done by by our people. You know, they cut down forests and they made logs and they used to burn that brush. And that's what my dad done. Sometimes in the summer when I was a little bigger. But then too, my grandparents had a lot of my bringing up. My grandpa died when I was about 4 years old on my dad's side. But I barely remember him. But I remember him like being drunk on my dad's side. So I guess he used to drink that homemade stuff. But on my mother's side, those were the grandparents that I lived with for a long time. Right till I was 18, I used to go live with them. My grandpa used to look after us. When we were poor, he used to come driving in his horses every day just to check on us, to see if we had anything to eat and all that. I remember we lived in this log house. It was made of logs, and in my later years, I remember my mom used to whitewash some walls from inside. That thing they painted with was called lime, and they used to mix it with water and paint the walls, just like it was paint, but they had to mix it. And but anyway, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was living with my auntie and uncle, and they were the ones that had a lot to do with my upbringing too. They taught me a lot. They taught me how to work, how to share, and to go to church, how to be humble and love everybody. And that stayed with me all the years that I was growing up. And it was there when I started school, to a day school up south over here. There was a day school there, and I remember I was so scared when I started school that first day. I didn't know a word of English. I didn't know nothing, what was going to happen. And I remember I was crying on our way to the school because I was so afraid. Anyway, I went to school there for 2 years till I was just about 8. And that's where, I don't know, something happened to me, I don't know, when I was just about 8. I can't remember anything till I was just about 12. I just never remember. The years were lost. Like I say, my mom didn't used to drink, but my dad used to drink. And then that's when I went to residential school in Prince Albert when I was just about 12. I remember getting there, and it was hard being away from, my family. I used to cry. I knew a little bit English then, but there was a lot of kids from the northern areas, and a lot of them were, pretty mean. Like, to me, because I was very humble, I didn't know how to fight or anything. And there was not very many of us from this community that went there. And I remember that these kids from from Manitoba. The Pa, some of them were there, not very many. And there were some from Birch River, Manitoba. There was a couple there and they were older than us. And somehow because we were pretty small and, defenseless, the older ones from Manitoba, they tried to look after us. They used to take up for us when kids used to fight us. My brother went there, just him and I, and he ran away, I don't know how many times from the school, because he couldn't stand being away from the family. This was in 1953 and 54. I went there in Prince Albert. And then the next year, this was the worst time of my life. We were taken to Gordon's, that's a residential school. I remember, I don't know who it was, a guy in the reserve here had a big truck, just like a grain truck. That's where we were put in a truck and transported to the school. I was just about 13 then, and on the way there was kids in that truck that were about 5, 6 years old. They were made to go to school, and I remember they were crying and crying just about all the way. It took, I don't know how many hours to get us there. But I remember some of these kids are still alive here in Nora, and I was comforting them and, trying to make them stop crying. And today, some of them take me as their mom. They remember, but anyway, that was the hardest time of my life. I was, right from the beginning, we weren't treated right. There was a lot of kids there. We were there by age groups, and that time I remember I used to try and look after other kids too. There was kids there from northern Manitoba, God's Lake Narrows, that way far over there, and they didn't know how to speak English. And some of them were older than I was. But those were the ones, and we couldn't really understand their language. It was kind of different. They were Cree, but we couldn't really understand. Oh, it was so awful. The way, just like they were treated worse than us. We used to get slapped around. It was nothing for supervisors to mistreat the kids. I was sexually abused, and it was hard. But anyway, I went there with my cousins. One of them was about a year older than I was, and there was 2 other girls that were younger. And my older cousin, her name was Margaret, and their parents were separated quite a few years before that, and their mom didn't look after them. They were with their dad. But anyway, I remember that we got there probably end of August or early of September, and That one evening, it was about the third week of September, you know, they used to, on an intercom, they used to put the radio on there for, you know, for all the whole school, so the kids can listen, I guess. And we were in our dormitory, me and my older cousin. All at once, the news came on. We sat there and, oh, it was so hard, you know. They were telling about this woman that was found dead in Melfort, north of Melfort. Somebody ran over her and just left her there. And then they named her. It was her mum. Nobody phoned there to tell them about it, and this happened a couple of days before. It was their mum that was murdered. Oh, she freaked out. It was my mum. I always remember nobody could, you know, console her. That was hard. Supervisor came, finally, you know, she slapped her to make her stop crying. Lucky thing I was there in the same dormitory as her, and I tried to be consoling to her, but it was hard. And you know, they weren't even allowed to come home for their mum's funeral. Nobody told them. There was four of them in that family that were in that school. And she had to tell her younger sisters. And anyway, after that, three of my cousins, one of them was her. And then there was two others that were in that school. They were older than us. You know, we ran away. We come and ran away from that school because we were treated so bad. We used to get a slice of bread each meal. And I remember that we used to get the same soup every day. You know, I don't remember ever having meat in that school. We never had meat, just watery soup and watery porridge, powdered milk. We used to sit at long tables on one loaf of bread, a slice of bread each meal. It took us 2 days to get home. We caught some rides, some short rides, and anyway, south of Melfort, about an acre or somewhere around there. Me and my cousin caught a ride in this. It was raining. We caught a ride with a trucker, and he was so kind to us. He gave us pop and water. I remember he gave us a bar each, chocolate bar, because we were hungry. We didn't. But before that, I don't remember. We had to sleep that night, that first night, and we were wondering where to sleep. We didn't know where those were our cousins, where they were at, and it was getting night, and we came to a farm. There was cows around there, and we slept in a haystack, my cousin and I. It was very scary. These cows were close by us, but we slept there. It was raining. We were all wet. We didn't have no change of clothes, nothing. So early the next morning we started off again, and it was still raining. We came on a highway and we caught a ride with a couple, and they gave us a ride to the next town, and they were telling us, you girls shouldn't be on a highway, you shouldn't be hitchhiking, it's dangerous. They were kind of an older couple, and they told us to be careful. And you know, they blessed us when they let us off. That old lady said, God will look after you. You'll be safe. She prayed for us, and I always remember that. So anyway, we started again. It took us a long time. Walking. We got another ride. Short ride again, and then they let us off. We were on the highway and south of Nacum, I don't know how far, but we got to Nacum and we came through there. On the edge of Nacum on the north side, that's where this trucker gave us a ride. He must have pitied us. It was afternoon already, and he gave us a ride as far as Melfort, and we were so thankful. But he was such a nice man, kind of an older man. When I think about it now, you know, I get scared. We took a chance hitchhiking, but I think them days it wasn't like this was 1955, 56, I think, yeah. It's not like it is today, I guess, you know, there was no, like the way women are missing and all that. I don't think it was like that them days then. Not so bad anyway. But anyway, we got to Melfort, we were hungry and wet, and on the west side of Melfort, just out of town, there's a bush there. When you get to Melfort, on the south side, there's a bush there. And that's where we knew people used to live. They used to live in tents from our community. Well, some from, you know, just to get away from the reserve and try and live somehow out there. And we went there. And here, our present chief of the day was there. He had a tent there and his family. And they asked us where we came from. He was a nice old man. Well, he was kind of old, that chief, and he knew we ran away. We didn't have to tell him. But anyway, we told him we come and ran away. And he asked us questions, how we were treated and all that. And we told him how we were being treated. We never hear from home. We don't know what's going on back home, we said. And here, my mom, I guess, used to write to us all the time, once or twice a week. She used to write letters to us, and we never got them. So anyway, they fed us real good and they packed the lunch for us. And he told us, you make sure the cops are looking for you already, he said. I could take you to the police station, but I want you to go see your parents at least. Probably when you get there, you'll be taken back to the school. the cops will go for you, he told us. So he told us what was going to happen. And, but I hope you make it home. And it was getting late afternoon, we started walking. Again, we were walking on a railroad track, I remember, because we were scared after what he said to us. And it was getting late evening, we were so tired. At least we had that little lunch he gave us. They gave us, him and his wife. And just between Beatty and Kinistino, we seen an old farmhouse. It was getting late, so we said we'd go there and try and sleep there. Here, when we got there, there was an old man living there. He was kind. He said, "What are you doing hitchhiking?" And we told him we're trying to make it home. We didn't tell him we ran away. And, but we asked him if we could camp there for the night. And he hesitated for quite a while, and then he said, well, we told him we were very tired walking and trying to get to James Smith. Fort LaCorne it was called then, not James Smith. And okay, he said, you can sleep upstairs. It was a real old house, kind of ugly in there, but he told us you can sleep upstairs. He said he gave us a couple of blankets, and there's no bed or anything up there. So he gave us some water, and so we went up there, and we had a good sleep, you know. I'm always thankful that he didn't bother us or anything. But we had a good sleep. We slept on the floor. Early next morning, we got up. He offered to fix us breakfast, but we said, no thanks, we want to get home. So we left. To this day, that house is still there, that old farmhouse. Every time I pass there, you know, I remember. That old man he was kind. So we left there, and we walked all the way now to the reserve, from the highway to the reserve. And first place we went to was my grandparents, my mother's parents. And my grandmother was crying. I guess they knew already that we come and ran away. She hugged us. She said, thank God you're here and you're safe. Did anything happen to you on the way? And we said, no. Well, she said, God was looking after you. So we stayed there. She fed us. And then we lived about maybe 2 miles away from where they lived. And then my grandfather hitched up his horses. He had horses and a wagon, and he took us back. We lived close together, my cousin and I. So we made it home. My mom was so happy to see me, and she was crying, and I was so happy to be home. I thought I was going to stay home. I was glad to see my little siblings. She asked me what was going on at the school. I told her everything, what was happening. Sometimes we'd go to bed hungry. We didn't get enough to eat. And then I went to bed and I slept. Next morning when I woke up, the RCMP were there. They were there to pick us up, to take us back. I cried and cried, begged. If I could stay home, but no. My mother was crying. My dad was arguing with the RCMP. My cousin was in there already and she was crying in that vehicle. This was the 3rd week of September. Couldn't do nothing. My dad couldn't do nothing. So we had to go back. They took us back to the school. They took us as far as Nakum, and other RCMP took us from there. And when we got to the school, that's when it was hard. We got hit by the principal. He was an Anglican priest. You know, I often wonder, I remember him, always I remember him the way he looked. He was real tall and he used to be always dressed in black and never smiled. He looked so wicked. Today now, I'm a minister, an Anglican minister. How can he have treated kids like that? I always think of him like he was the devil. He punched us around. We got beat up. He was hitting us with his fists. And then he gathered all the children in an auditorium, to make an example of us. He was hitting us. And then in front of all the kids, I used to have long hair. My cousin did too, and they shaved our heads there in front of all the kids to make an example of us. After that, that same evening, they found my cousins, and same thing happened to them. I guess he done the same thing to them. He was hitting them with his fists, and they had their haircuts. Just like we were not human beings the way he treated us, treated all the kids. He done that to all the kids. I used to see him banging heads together, young kids, little kids. They banged their heads together if they'd done something, or even if they spoke their own language. We were never allowed to speak our language. And it was so hard for the other kids that couldn't talk English. Sometimes we used to have to talk for them, like anyway, I've seen a lot of abuse of kids in that school. things that we didn't deserve, because we were never treated like that at home. My dad never hit me, not once in my life. But it was hard. I was not allowed to see my sisters. One brother was there. We were not allowed to see them even. Sometimes I remember we'd get a glimpse of each other and I'd see my little sisters crying for me. I seen some kids disappearing. I don't know what happened to them. One day they'd be there and the next day they wouldn't be there. We made friends with other reserves, and especially the south over here, like Kamsack area and all that, and we made good friends with them. I made a lot of good friends, because I was easy to talk to. Anyway, I never received a letter. We were there 10 months. We didn't even come home for Christmas. I never received a letter from my mom, and she used to write to me all the time, I guess. So we didn't know what was happening at home, how everybody was. So we were very unhappy. I used to cry every day and lonesome, wondering how my family was doing. And we used to pray every morning. We were taken to the chapel, and we used to have prayers, and we had to be on our knees. We had to kneel there. And a lot of times I used to see kids fainting from kneeling there too long. But before I left home, I used to go to church. My mom used to take us to church, and my grandparents. And when I was in school over there, why is this happening? Where is God? I used to think, where is God? At home I learned, before that, I learned how to be humble and to have respect for all people. That's what my grandparents taught me, and my parents. Before that, I never used to hate anybody. But over there at that school, that's where I learned what hate was. And it was a bad feeling. I hated them people there, what they were doing to us. That's where everything evil happened in that school. Sexual abuse, and it was so lonely. Lonely all the time. We didn't even come home for Christmas. And we didn't get nothing for Christmas. No special meal. Just like another day. That's where I got confirmed. I was 13 and but these lessons, these confirmation lessons we had to take, we had to know every word in that catechism. It's written in a prayer book. We had to know every word when we got confirmed. And just like it was such a long, long time, just like it was forever when we were there. I seen a lot of kids being destroyed. My friends from around the Broadview area there, I had real good friends. And one day this girl, she was one of my best friends. I don't know what happened to her, but she got beat up. And she had to leave the school. I don't know what happened to her. One day she was there, and the next day she was gone. And it made it worse, because she was one of my best friends, and I missed her after that. And I remember these girls fighting. I don't know where one of them got a knife, but one of them got knifed. I remember seeing all that blood, and they were gone too. Well, I know that they felt the way I did. Life was hard, and here it was supposed to be happy, being a teenager. But I don't remember ever having a happy day. We were made to do work. That's one thing that I'm always happy about, that I really learned how to work. That's one thing that came out of there. To this day, I still work, try and do things for myself around my house. That's one thing, anyway, good thing that came out of there. And my cousins were there on a boy's side, my brother. We never hardly seen each other. They were made to work outside because they had a garden and stuff like that, and they had animals there that they had to take care of. Towards spring, I used to get a little happy, thinking that I was closer to coming home. And then it was time to come home. I was happy, we were all happy. And we wished each other, all my friends. when we got home, a big disappointment. I guess my mom had started drinking. And I seen a lot of abuse in my parents' marriage. I was so unhappy when my mom used to drink, and I was the caregiver of all my siblings. I had to take care of them. I turned 14, and that's when I lost years again. I don't remember anything from when I was 14 till I was just about 17. I lost those years. I don't know what happened to me. I don't remember them years, but I know there was a lot of abuse in my family. My mom was badly abused. My dad was a mean drunk. He abused my mom so much. I even remember one time he was beating up my mom, and my mom managed to get away, and she took us. We went and hid behind a bush behind our house. She took us there, and my dad was shooting at us with a .22. Lucky thing he didn't hit any of us. He wanted to kill my mom. So it was like that. Like I said, I lost them years. I just can't ever remember twice that happened in my life. And I don't know what happened to me. Can't remember. But then, when I was 17, that's when I started remembering. And I started using alcohol. There was no drugs them days. I guess there was, but there was nothing around like in our community. But I started drinking, and I remember the only time my mom, she hit me, well, I swore at her. I deserved it. That's the only time I ever remember my mom hitting me. Because we were taught to respect people, respect our parents. And I didn't drink all that much, but I still used to drink, and I got into my late husband. I started going together, but he used to drink a lot, and I knew that he was abusive. He was a wicked drunk. But like Like it was an arranged marriage. I married him knowing what kind of a person he was. Right, we got married. Before that, he never used to hit me or anything. But right after we got married, that's when things changed. Right from day one, he showed his true self. He was jealous. He used to hit me even when he was sober. I couldn't even go visit my parents. I couldn't talk to my family, my close relatives. It was an abusive marriage. I started having kids. I had 7 kids by him, and I started drinking too because he wouldn't leave me at home alone. I had to go with him whenever I used to go drinking. And that's today now I'm so sorry what I done to my kids. I used to leave them to fend for themselves. And I had 4 miscarriages because of my drinking and the abuse that I had. You know, last year I was 4 months pregnant at one time and I lost my baby just because of alcohol and abuse. And I used to often wonder, because I learned that as soon as a baby is conceived, it has a soul. That's what I learned, and I used to often wonder, about my babies that I lost. And then last year in the spring, I was sleeping and I used to always think about the babies that I had lost. I had 7 kids, and I adopted two babies. I adopted 2 girls. But then this one night I had a dream. I dreamt of 4 babies. Just like I went to a hospital and just like I was told, these are your babies, they're all in a room there was 3 girls there and a boy, and these were the babies I lost. I was so happy about that dream. They looked so beautiful. They were still babies, they were crawling around. They were so healthy and little fat babies. I was so happy about that dream. So I knew they were all right, they were okay. They were with Jesus, and I told this story to our other minister, and I was happy. But anyway, my kids, my oldest daughter, I had a daughter that was the oldest one. Well, 2 of them were the oldest ones. And they were the ones that took care of their siblings. I had to go with my husband when he used to go drink, and he was an alcoholic. A lot of times I didn't want to leave my kids. Maybe my oldest girl was about 8 or 9, and the other ones were younger. A lot of times I didn't want to leave them. But like I said, my husband was a jealous husband, and I had to go with him. He forced me to go with him. And we leave our kids, sometimes with hardly any food. Lucky thing their granny lived close by, and their aunties and uncles used to look after them, I guess. And anyway, I didn't know how they felt when I used to leave them. I just about died, I don't know how many times. When we were drinking, we got into accidents, about 3 or 4 times. One time I was 8 months pregnant with my oldest son. My husband wanted to go drinking. Of course, I had to go along. And we got into an accident that night. I was 8 months pregnant with my boy. We were in Kinistino. He was drinking and I wasn't. And this guy, he was drinking with us, with him. He was going to give us a ride back. We didn't have no vehicle. And he was kind of drunk, the driver. But I should have knew not to get into that vehicle, because he was kind of drunk. And anyway, we left Kinistino, we went east, coming back that way, and it was raining that night. And I remember that time the doctors were on, what you call it, they weren't working. How would you say that?
A strike?
Yeah, all the doctors in Saskatchewan, I think, were like they weren't working during that time. And it was raining, and we came off from Kinistino, and about 3 miles east of Kinistino, we hit a dead end. We went through that dead end, and I was pregnant with my boy, and I was sitting in the front seat with the driver and my husband, and there was another guy in the back seat. We hit that dead end, going quite fast. And all of us got knocked out, I guess. I hit that mirror in the front there, and I got hurt here. I got a real big gash here. And anyway, I woke up. Everybody was knocked out. I was the first one to come to. And I was just bleeding and bleeding. And it was dark. I managed to open that door on the passenger side. I managed to get out of that vehicle, and I remember crawling up to the road, because I was just about blacking out. And there was a farm there about not far from where we had that accident. And there was a farm there, I managed to go there. I remember I was just all drenched in blood because I was bleeding from my... I managed to go to that farm, and I guess I just blacked out. I knocked on a door and this lady came to the door and I fell there. Anyway, they looked after me. They called for, even the ambulance I think were on strike. The doctors were on strike. She looked after me, and the RCMP came and they took me to the hospital in Melfort. But I remember blacking out when we were going because I lost so much blood. The RCMP took me to the hospital, and right away they must have called a doctor or something, but they took me to the operating room. I was in shock. They thought I was going into labor, and but I had surgery on my forehead. There was glass all over my forehead, and there was a real big cut here. I still have the scar. But anyway, I was in shock. I remember waking up and this doctor was there. They were taking glass out of my forehead, and I was so lucky that none of it went into my eyes. But anyway, I was in shock and I didn't feel nothing. And thankfully my baby was all right. They thought I was going into labor, but anyway, I was okay. And I guess these guys that I was with, my husband, the RCMP went back there and they checked on them, and they were hurt, but they didn't go to the hospital. You know, it was so, to this day now when I think about it, I was in a hospital for a week, and not once did my husband come and check on me. He was drinking all that time. I was in there for a week in a hospital and wondering how my kids were, but I guess their auntie was looking after them. I was talking about my kids last, and we went into a AA program, and that really helped. But my husband kept, falling off when my kids were. And one day, I had a Bible. I used to try and teach my kids how to pray and all that. I told myself I'm going to quit drinking and look after my kids. And one day I was looking through my Bible, and I found a letter there. By that time, my girls were starting to be teenagers. And it made me cry lots when I read that letter. It was from one of my daughters, but I don't know which one it was. It wasn't signed. But in there, it told me how much I was hurting them by drinking alcohol. So it made me think that I had to quit. Meanwhile, everybody, all of my family and friends were drinking. But I read that letter, and it said in there that it's like my daughter said she was never, it's like she felt she was never a child. It made me cry lots. She said that she had to be looking after her siblings. She said that she used to sit by the window and watch the kids playing outside while she was just like she was the mother. I was never a child, it said in that letter. And then she went on to tell me about the other kids. I guess my middle boy, because we used to leave the kids 2 or 3 days at a time sometimes. And I guess my middle son, he used to get on the roof and sit there and he'd wait for us to come home. That really made me cry. This is the son that I noticed every time we came home, like he was sick. We made him sick. After that, I started going to church more. And I used to take my kids to church, and finally, I just gave up drinking. I told my husband, I said, this is it. I said, I'm quitting. You can do whatever you want, but I don't want you with us if you're going to keep on drinking. I said, you have to leave or else we'll leave. I'll take my kids, I said. And there were 7 kids. So I guess he thought about it. He started slowing down. And then he started attending church too. For maybe about 5 years. And he fell again. But I told him, what did I tell you the last time? So he must have thought about it, and he started going to the church more. And then we used to go to these camps every spring. We were taught about the Bible, just like it was a class, religious class. We used to go there for a week at a time. And then we changed our lives around. We became more involved in the church. And we started doing services in the church because we didn't have no minister here that time. We became lay readers. We looked after both churches because we have 2 churches here. And then he decided he wanted to be a minister. So he was talking to our bishop more and more, and he was made a minister and an Anglican priest. I used to help him all the time in the church, and in 1984, we got a little girl that was being passed around. Her mother didn't want her, and she went to 4 different homes before we got a phone call and they asked us if we wanted to take her. She was only 7 months old. My kids were, well, my youngest was maybe about 10 years old at that time. So we took that little girl, she was 7 months old. We brought her up as our own. And then about 6 years later, we got her little sister. She was only 2 months old. She was in poor health, and her mom didn't look after her. She was sickly. So she brought her to our house, and she wanted us to take her. So we did. So we brought the 2 little girls up, their sisters. Today now they're happily married. They gave me 6 grandchildren. So it's always so thankful. So I have 9 kids altogether. I had 7 of my own kids. I had 9 grandchildren out of my own kids, and then the 2, they have 6 kids, so I have quite a few grandchildren, and I have now great-grandchildren. So always happy I took the girls, but the youngest one, she gave us quite a bit of trouble when she was about 14, 13, she got into drugs. She used to take off on us all the time and go do drugs with her friends. And then she started trying to kill herself. She was cutting herself and everything. And I used to talk to her gently, and I never scolded them or hit them or anything. The first one, she was all right. She was a good girl. She graduated. But anyway, this girl, this younger one, she gave us a lot of problems. I think that one time, in a week, maybe she tried 2 or 3 times to commit suicide. And then finally I had enough. I loved her so much that I didn't want her to destroy herself. I knew she was doing marijuana, and she was getting on into alcohol. So we took her to the hospital for that last time, and I told her, you have to go get help. They put her in a psych ward in Prince Albert for a week. She was mad at me, she was mad at us. But then they took her. I took her close to her after, but we weren't let to talk to her for a week on a phone or see her. And we took her close to her. I guess she used to scream and cry and wanting to talk to me, but after the 5th day, they said that she could talk to us, but I wouldn't talk to her. Before she was taken away, she was yelling at me. She was telling me she hated me. I hate you, you're not my mom. I don't love you. I hate you, she was saying that. I didn't say nothing to her. She hurt me, but I didn't say nothing, so. So that day now when we went for her, a week she was in there. Yeah, anyway, when she came out, she was different. We went and I talked to her and she wanted to talk. She said, "I'm sorry, Mom." She said, "I didn't mean what I said to you." And then I told her, "You know why I had to put you in there," I said. I told her, "It's because I love you. It's not that I hate you, why I put you there." I told her, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't care what you do. I'd let you do whatever you wanted if I didn't love you. But I love you, that's why I done that. So she understood, and she started to change. She changed. She met a boy soon after that, and they got married. They have 2 kids. But she always thanks me for what I put her through, I guess. But anyway, I'm always thinking about the legalization of this marijuana that's coming up. I hate it. I hate it, what it's going to do to our young people. I always watch these documentaries about stuff. And a couple of weeks ago I was watching, it was a doctor talking, and he was telling people that a person's brain doesn't finish growing till about when you're 24 or 25 years old. So that marijuana is going to damage a lot of kids. Already did. So I don't like what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen to the young people. I care for all young people. I always did when I really put my life together again. I pray for young people all over the world, not only in our community. And I'm not scared, I'm not ashamed to tell them I love them. And just about 2 years ago, I lost my oldest grandson. That was the hardest thing that I came through. I'll never be over it, what happened to him. My youngest daughter and her husband, they had 6 kids. This guy was from northwest of Saskatchewan. But I guess he was into drugs. They got married. And they lived in a city. And I didn't know that he was dealing drugs all those years. He was a drug addict himself. They had 2 boys and 4 girls. I don't know why. Good things happen to bad people sometimes. You know, he won $100,000 in a lottery ticket, and things got worse from there. They broke up. Their kids were small. And I spent a lot of time looking after my grandchildren. My daughter used to drink lots. She used to leave her kids, and we had to look after them. And as they were growing up, my oldest grandson, he quit school. He didn't even finish school. And I used to encourage him to try and finish his education. But he was involved with his father so much that he got into drugs. And then he hardly ever used to come to our house after he got into drugs. And then it'll be 2 years in April, March, it'll be 2 years next month. He started coming to the house. He came home about 4 times. And I always thank God for that. He come and spent time with us. But he was into drugs, and I didn't know that he was dealing in drugs. I didn't know that. Nobody told me. And then he went home. It was going to be Easter on the 15th of April that year. It'll be 2 years. He came home about 3-4 days before Easter. And he must have had a dream that he wanted to see his hockey team, to see them in person. And my son, my middle son, his team were going to play in Calgary that day, that Easter Sunday. My son took him there, not knowing what was going to happen. My son took him to Calgary to go and watch his favorite team. So they got home that next night. It was Easter evening, and I had a big meal waiting for them. They ate lots, they were having fun. Then a couple of days later he left. He went back to Prince Albert. That was the last time I ever seen him. On the 16th of April, he went missing from Prince Albert. I didn't know that he was in a gang too. We lost him for 49 days. Nobody could find him. Nobody knew where he was. They used to go searching around Prince Albert for all that time. And I used to pray, please, Lord, let someone find him. Let someone find him. Towards the end, I used to pray that let someone find his body at least, so we can put him to rest. I gave up hope for him to be found alive. He was 21, my oldest grandson. So finally on June 3rd, I always listen to the news in the mornings early. June 3rd, I was listening to the news and I heard a farmer found a body south of Prince Albert, quite a ways south, near a town. And I knew right away it was him. But he was gone missing so long, and it was just hot all that time. They were still searching. You know, they went close to where he was found, but they were on the wrong side of the highway. So we didn't get no phone call or anything. But we had an idea. My daughter, the cops went and seen her and her ex-husband to take their DNA or whatever it was and to ask for dental records. So they had to phone around and to see where he's seen a dentist and all that. And that's how they identified him. So we waited. We waited. We knew it was him then. Not till about 5 days later, we got a phone call that it was him they found. But I thank God that, he, at least they found him. Even though it was the hardest time of our lives. So now, we had to wait a few more days, and then they brought the remains to Malford there. And we went there to make funeral arrangements. They wouldn't let my daughter in that room. They asked me instead to go in there where he was. And it was hard. I went in that room. Nothing but a bag there on a table. His bones, that was all that was left of him. All his clothes were in there. That's the hardest time of my life. Today I still mourn for my grandson every day. I never thought that would happen to him. It really devastated the family, all the family, because we all loved him, just like he was my boy. I brought him up quite a bit. And our family was very angry. They wanted revenge. But I talked to our bishop, and he told me to tell the young people not to think that way, not to think of revenge. He told me that they'll spoil his journey if they think that way. They'll spoil his journey. So I talked to my family, all the young kids, and I told them, don't think that way, please. You'll spoil him. You'll spoil his journey to wherever he's going. For a long time, my youngest grandson, his brother, he's 20 or 19 now, but he's living with me. He's still very angry. He's angry. But I keep telling him, don't think that way, I said. Let your brother go, let him rest. Let him rest, let him go. That's what I tell him all the time. But anyway, it was so weird what happened. We had a wake for 2 nights for him. And that first night of the wake, I came here to the school. That's where we had it in the gym. And I got sick that night. I have heart problems. So they took me home to my house early. And my other daughter came soon after I left the school. She went back there too. And she slept in my room. There's a little extra bed in there where I always keep it for grandchildren. And I guess sometime during the night I was having real bad chest pains and I didn't want to go to the hospital, and sometime during the night I must have fell asleep, and she heard me talking to him. I guess I was saying Gilbert, that was his name. I guess I was talking to him, but in Cree, she couldn't really understand, and I didn't even remember that. I was talking to him. You kept saying Gilbert, Gilbert, my daughter was saying. So now the next morning we got up and most of the family left, and just my oldest son was there with me in the living room. It was just before dinner time. I was feeling a little better. And all at once the ambulance pulled up to our door. They came in and they asked for me. And I said, why? I said, we didn't call no ambulance. We didn't talk to anybody. But they said the call came from here and it's for you. And he asked me how I was feeling. I said, I'm okay. Anyway, they checked me over and they wanted to take me to the hospital. I said, no, I'm not going. I said, we got a funeral tomorrow. But anyway, it was so odd because, nobody called for that ambulance. So I always think maybe it was him trying to look after me or to save me or something. Yeah. But anyway, after that, I was so lonesome all the time because there's only two of my boys and me were living there. That one night I was sitting on my bed and I was crying for him being lonesome. And all at once, it's like I felt somebody sit down on my bed. And just like he took my hand. Don't cry, Kokum. I'm all right. I heard those words. But there was nobody there. So from then on, I tried to quit my crying. Maybe I'm holding him back, I was telling myself. So, but today I still, it still hurts. And I still try and look after my grandchildren because I love them. I always feel that God gave me a second chance. The way I treated my kids, He gave me a second chance to look after my grandchildren and to try and teach them, the way we're supposed to live. I try and teach them to love all people and respect all people and to be humble and not to bother alcohol and drugs. I'm so glad that my kids, maybe a few of them will drink sometimes, but the rest, they don't drink. I'm always thankful for that. And that's what I try and pass on to, young people. There's elders working here at the school talking to people, but I never got that chance yet. I'd like to talk to young people. But right now, working with your mom, we work with your mom, and we're in the process of trying to help them. Yeah, I think we're going to be talking to young people. Because we've had suicides and all that, and that hurts. We've had quite a few suicides in our community. And that hurts the whole community, when someone does that, yeah. Well, I'm just about out of breath. No, no, but I'm on a healing journey myself, we just came back from that. because there's a lot of things that I kept to myself. Like I've never told my kids what I'm telling. They have an idea what I went through, but I never tell them. And one day I hope I'll tell them what. My kids are trying to look after me now, and I'm always so glad that they love me and they never take me for granted. And not like one of my adopted daughter, the older one. She hates her mom. She hates her mom. She'll never talk to her because she gave her away. But I always tell her to forgive her mom. Your mom, she had a horrible life too. She had 7 kids, and they were all in foster care. She never brought up any of her kids, and I always tell her that she had a bad life. You have to forgive her. She couldn't help it. She had to give you away. And we've loved you the way we love our other kids. My husband died going on 11 years ago now, so I'm all alone. Like I try and look after. And to make it worse, as a minister, it's hard. You care for everybody. You try and look after everybody. Sometimes I feel as if the world is on my shoulders. They're so heavy from worrying about young people and trying to live to be a role model. So I help anybody whenever I can. I'll give my last dollar to if anybody asks me. And I'm not rich. I always say that. I'm not, I'm just barely getting by sometimes, but I'm thankful for that because I'm used to it. I always tell my kids, sometimes, why don't you buy yourself new clothes, they say. And I said, I don't need them. I said, I've got everything what I need. I have all of you, and I have friends, relatives, and people. I don't need new clothes for that. I always tell them I always get my stuff from, and but I'm happy. I'm happy because I know how to survive. I came through a lot of hard times. Hunger. I always remember even snaring rabbits, hunting ducks. When we used to be hungry, my brother and I used to go out, hunt, these ducklings and snaring, stuff like that. I remember hauling wood from the bush in the winter when the snow was deep, trying to survive. And I survived. But I always have someone. God is my, we have to have him in our lives. He's there for us all the time. As an elder, elders feel lonely, Sometimes I'm home alone, but I always find things to do, like sewing, reading, or, and I'm always thankful for every day when I get up. Every morning, I thank our Heavenly Father for giving me life and breath and able to move around each morning. Those are what I do every morning. I pray for all people, I pray for people all over, especially in the cities. And I pray for people who travel. So that gives me gives me a great pleasure to talk to young people, you know. I'm trying to teach my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, how to be humble and have respect and, you know, to love all people no matter who it is and to help people. That's really important to me. So with that, I think I've talked too much.
I think you talked just enough. It's good.
And I thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
And may you have a safe journey home.
Thank you.
And I'll be praying for you.